So I wanted to make this video and just kind of, I guess, air these thoughts out because I think in the last few months, right, realistically over the last year, we've seen here in the United States quite a catastrophic situation to say the least, and I think that they all really go to highlight just how inept and how worthless the United States government is, how deeply rooted in failure the system that our country has been built upon now is. And to kind of highlight the fact that most Americans don't even know or care about most of the issues that really do affect them on a day-to-day level. You know, this is stuff that realistically affects your whole life, and people choose to stay willfully ignorant about situations going on. And it's all at the benefit of the United States government. So, in the year alone, okay, since the beginning of 2019, just off the top of my head, what can I name? Constant division between people on the left and right over the political situation, you know, the presidential election, things like that. The Black Lives Matter protests, the police brutality protests that took place across the country. An economic disaster that completely destroyed the US economy and it's still trying to recover from. A situation that was caused by a global pandemic that hit the United States especially hard, killed countless Americans, infected countless Americans, completely changed our way of life overnight. The media has sensationalized 99.9% of all stories either on a left or right skew in order to make people think that other Americans are their actual enemy. We just saw the United States Capitol sieged by thousands of Donald Trump supporters and protesters that resulted in 4 people being killed, okay? And that's just to name a few. That doesn't even involve, like, the government not being able to give Americans the funding and security that they need during these situations. These are just some of the major moments that have kind of taken place in the last, 13 months. And if you want to go back even 25 years, it would take me hours to go through all of it. But that's just recent, so we've seen all these situations unfold, and as they continue to unfold, I feel like America gets further and further off course from actually solving any problems and getting to the root of any issues. And once again, this is all at the benefit of the United States government. So, a major thing that I think most Americans don't realize is that the US government profits off of your willful ignorance and your inability to actually want to change anything. Over time, the US government has become more and more overbearing. They have done more and more to strip Americans of their basic rights. I mean, you look at things like the Patriot Act, which have enabled the United States government to, in layman's terms, legally establish a widespread surveillance network on American citizens, whether or not they've even been accused of doing anything wrong. Your conversations are fully monitored by the government. Your phones are basically wiretapped. All of your internet traffic is documented by your ISP and is accessible to the US government. Everything you believe in, everything you say, everything you do is monitored by somebody, and the US government has access to all of that, which is pretty much a direct response to the September 11th terrorist attacks, which happened when I was still a baby. So this has been the America that I have grown up in. I've seen 2 economic recessions that have destroyed the economy in my lifetime. I've watched as rights have been stripped away from Americans. I've watched as the police state continuously gets away with the inaction that they commit and make the rest of the police in our country look absolutely horrible, even if they've done nothing wrong. And first responders in general are looked at much differently now than they were maybe even 10, 15 years ago. I think belief in the political structure in America is faltering completely. I think people don't believe that they can enact any change, and this all really benefits the government because Americans are, at this point, it seems unwilling to actually do anything to make any changes. So the system itself is completely fucked up in the United States. One of the big things that people always say, and something that I used to believe in heavily, is, oh, if you go vote, you can enact change. Well, while that is technically true, and that's what the Founding Fathers intended with it, the concept is much more nuanced, I think, at this point. In the United States, when you vote somebody into office as a representative or into any other position like the presidency, vice presidency, things like that, right? There's so much corporate lobbyists that have infested our political system that they no longer are working for the will of the American public. They are now working at the will of the corporate elites, the billionaires in our society, oil tycoons, the military-industrial complex, big pharma, companies in big tech, things like that. They control the outcome of our political processes simply because of how much money they put behind candidates that they are essentially paying to do their bidding. We live in a country where Americans have the right to vote. they have the rights in the Bill of Rights and in the Constitution. You know, we like to think that we're such a free group of people. And while on paper, yeah, that is true, America is an extremely free country on paper, the US government, through situations like this, has found ways to basically strip you of your rights. I'm just going to outright say it. Because these billionaires and these tycoons have none of your best interests in mind. They want to continue to pollute the planet and destroy it for their own profit. They want to abuse the psychological basis of your mind for profit, like big tech. They want to abuse the fact that people are in need or in situations that require them to be dependent in order to make profit, like big pharma. And the money that they put behind candidates is used simply to keep you at bay and to keep the government on their side. Most Americans couldn't care any less about corporate lobbyists, or they're just fully unaware of their existence in the first place, and it's a sad situation, because I think most Americans also don't realize that the same billionaires that are paying for these politicians basically to be in their pockets either directly control or are friends with and in cahoots with the people who directly control essentially all of the media in the United States. People believe what they see on the news, and it's sad that they do, because 90% of all media outlets in the United States are owned by 6 mega corporations, including AT&T, which bought Time Warner, CBS, Comcast, Disney, News Corp, and Viacom. So these 6 companies that are run by the elites and by the billionaires have access over 90% of all media outlets. They directly fund the politicians in Washington to do their bidding. They're friends with the people who run the military-industrial complex, the pharmaceutical companies, the food companies, everything. And they all work together in this big complex network in order to keep the average American down. Because not only is it profitable to keep the average American suppressed, but it's protective to them to keep the average American suppressed. The less that you care about situations going on in the real world, the more power they have over you, because the less likely you are to act on those things. If you're somebody who's fully aware of what's happening in the United States right now, you essentially have no choice but to be upset and to wish for things to get better, okay? Regardless of what political side that you're on, I think we all as Americans who are paying attention can understand that this country has some fucking problems. So while the media and the government have been bought out by a couple of people, essentially, all of your news stories are also spun once again on a bipartisan political sphere in order to make you believe that the other people in your life are your enemies. Mainly against Republicans and Democrats. You'll have Fox News and those guys on the right against like CNN and those guys on the left. And if you read into anything that they say, you'll quickly realize, if you have reading comprehension, that all these companies do is make people believe that the other average Americans are your enemies. You're trained to believe that people in poverty, that people addicted to drugs, that people in bad situations, that people with other political beliefs than you, other religious beliefs than you, people of other races than you, of other genders than you, have it out for you and they wish badly on you, when in the average case, that is not the case whatsoever. And when it creates more political divide like that, all it does is fuel the broken political system that we have in this country. The fact that only 2 people ever have a chance at winning the presidency because of the party that they're affiliated with is an absolute nightmare. I voted third party in the last election because I couldn't find a reason for me personally to vote for either of the candidates. I did not support Joe Biden, and I did not support Donald Trump. I know people are going to say it. I did not vote for Kanye West either. I already know because people have already asked. I did not vote for Kanye West either, but that's beside the point, okay? The political spectrum in the United States, okay, is you're either a Democrat or a Republican, which is ridiculous because the average person realistically falls somewhere in between these 2 extremes, okay? And I think another huge problem is that the media and our country in general sensationalizes the radicalization on both sides. When you look at the news, you'll see groups like Antifa that are used to represent leftist ideals, when I would say, from my personal experience, the majority of people on the left that I've talked to in my personal life disavow much of Antifa's tactics. But then also on the right, you'll have right-wing Christian extremist groups, militia groups, and whatnot used to represent the average Donald Trump supporter, which I also don't believe is the case. I believe the average Donald Trump supporter, from what I've talked to, is somebody who believes in some of his ideals, usually thinks that he's not necessarily the greatest person in general, but also thinks that having fresh blood into politics, which Donald Trump had no prior political experience, was something that the country needed. And while you're free to believe whatever you want, at least by my opinion, I think that it's important that more Americans become aware of the situations going on and become more aware that other Americans are not your enemy. People struggling through poverty are not your problem. People who are addicted to drugs are not the problem. People who support the Second Amendment are not the problem. Your problems are much more severe than that, and you don't even realize it. For the most part, you don't even realize it. And if you do realize it, there's nothing being done to fix the situation. I think at this point, more Americans are genuinely willing to sit back and allow this shit to happen than to actually stand up and do something about it. And the unfortunate part of this is, most people don't realize that the events that are going to be unfolding over the next 10 to 15 years, in my personal opinion, including what happened at the Capitol, are going to be used to strip you of more of your rights, are going to be used to make you more and more submissive to the power of the government. They're going to highlight things that have happened, and they're going to use them as scapegoats to push more and more of the American people down, to make sure that more and more Americans can't genuinely fight back. Because the less that you can fight back and the less that you give a fuck, not only is it the more money that they make, but it's the more control that they have over you. I hate to sound like a conspiracy theorist when I say things like this, but a lot of what I'm saying can be backed up by factual evidence. The United States government does not have the people's best interest in mind, because if they did, we would live in an entirely different country than we do right now. That's all I really wanted to say. Thank you guys for watching. If you did enjoy, make sure to leave a like. Subscribe if you're brand new around here on the channel. Follow me over on Twitter and Twitch at @SubToOptimus. Make sure to check out Shop Opti down below. Thank you to my channel members. Your support helps my channel tremendously. And until my next video, guys, this is Optimus, well, just not understanding, I guess. And signing out.